Hello everyone and welcome back to the Casual Fan Podcast, the hardest working, most entertaining, and above all else, the most profitable sports gambling podcast you will find anywhere. I'm your host, Ben Holmes. I'm your baseball commentator and your host for this podcast. I've saved the best for last. But before we delve into the NL West, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. It means a lot and we have huge things ahead, guys. NHL, MLB, NBA, and a few surprise sports, money just waiting to be made. This is a real division of the haves and the have-nots here, guys. So we have to determine two things. Who is the best of the rest of the Diamondbacks, the Giants, and the Rockies? And we also have to determine if the totals for the Dodgers and the Padres are overinflated because people are really loving betting the overs on these teams. At rock bottom, fittingly, we have the Colorado Rockies. They come in at plus 7,500 to win the division. They were projected to win 70 wins last season. The over-under for this year is 64.5. Basically, they traded away the best third baseman over the course of his career. And it's not just Nolan Arenado that's gone either. Daniel Murphy and David Dahl are no longer with the team. They brought in CJ Cron to do one job, and that one job is to hit dingers. When it comes to pitching, it's obviously tough to pitch in that thin Colorado air. German Marquez, though, is going to be their ace. He's still only 26, and there is hope he will get better over the next few years. I remember there was even some Cy Young buzz for this cat back in 2018 after he had a really good 2017. I think he is a good pitcher, but his home ERA is just so bad. It was 5.68 in 2020. In 2019, it was even worse. It was 6.26. And I know he's pitching in the toughest ballpark to pitch in, but that's still way too high. Perhaps the numbers could be argued that they are a little bit fudged because he did have one start against the Astros last year where he gave up 10 hits, and on those 10 hits, he gave up 10 earned runs. In his 12 other starts, there was only 3 starts where he gave up 3 or more earned runs. So he does have some good outings in there. He throws 5 pitches and a great curveball and a great slider. He does have all the stuff. And a 0.66 home run per 9 last year is really remarkable for pitching in Coors Field. This would be game changing if he can maintain that home run per 9 rate and bring it into this year. I'm a big Marquez guy. I think he's a great pitcher. Whether he can perform in the stadium, that's a different story. We talk a lot about 1-2 punches here, and you might look at Antonio Senzatella's numbers and say they have a 1-2 punch. No, they don't. He outperformed his peripherals. He had a woeful 5 strikeouts per 9 innings last year. He's really bad. He's not going to contribute at all this year. Actually, the rest of the rotation had a low strikeout rate, and of all the stadiums, you have to miss bats if you're a Colorado Rockies pitcher because any contact and that ball could be gone. The bullpen also stinks. Their offensive philosophy this year is simply out with the old, in with the new. Let the kids play. Pace and power throughout this lineup. I would take this lineup over the Arizona Diamondbacks and over the San Francisco Giants. That might not be a commonly held opinion. That's why the Rockies have the lowest over-under total in this division, but I genuinely believe that. It's just time that all these young guys put on their big boy pants and went out there and hit some balls. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Sam Hilliard, Brandon Rogers, Ryan McMahon, and Garrett Hampson. I'm talking to you. The kid gloves are off. Stop striking out so goddamn much. Get it together. You can all hit. I believe in you. Hilliard and Hampson will swipe bags for the Rockies as well. And Ryan Motapi is going to lead off. He's just 27. He's the age of the guys I mentioned, but he does have 5 years of big league experience under his belt. He just got to do what he did last year. 0.321 average, get on base, let's go. 5-time All-Star Charlie Blackmon. He's obviously slowing down as he gets into the later stages, but he'll age gracefully. He's not stealing bags anymore. He's not really hitting for power anymore, but what a veteran leader to have in that dugout. And he's not done yet. Yes, he's 34, but he did have a .804 OPS last year. That's really good. And don't forget about Trevor Story, one of the best shortstops in the league. Yes, the floor is low on this team, but the ceiling for me is much higher than the Diamondbacks and the Giants. I mean, the math checks out. Subtract one of the best third basemen in the league, one of the best hitters in the league, and you're over under. It makes sense that it's 6 games less than it was projected to get last year. But I have faith that the former high prospects hitting all the way through this lineup will step up, will realize it's their time to shine, and they're going to show people what they're made of. The old Arizona Diamondbacks plus 6,000 to win the division, on pace for 68 wins last year. 75.5 is their over-under total this year. I want to start by saying that the D-backs retro logo and the unis with the purple and the green is probably my favorite look in all of baseball, and it could be my favorite look in all of sports. All transactions were essentially bullpen moves highlighted by Joakim Soria to close. Joakim Soria, for those who don't know, is a guy whose strike rate and walk rate both went in the wrong direction last year. I don't see this as ending well. Now, I do love me some Zach Gallen, not gonna lie to you. 25 years old, back-to-back seasons with a sub-3 ERA. Real bright spot in this rotation. Madison Bumgarner, that's a name that everyone will know. And he's actually looked pretty good in spring training. There's a sense that he's completely collapsed. He's not as old as we think. He's only 31. I mean, don't get me wrong. This isn't the World Series MVP version of Madison Bumgarner, not by a long shot. His fastball has lost quite a bit of juice. For last season, he still struck out just under a batter per inning with good control. And I'm optimistic because last season his home run rate per 9 was 2.81, by far led the league, and that was out of the norms for his career averages. So if that comes down and everything else stays the same, he's going to save a lot of runs on that ERA, and he will be a decent pitcher. I wouldn't want him as my number 2 guy, but hey, he's okay. Luke Weaver led the league in losses last year. He had a 1-9 record. Caleb Smith missed a lot of last year, but I kind of like his stuff. Merrill Kelly's returning from an injury of his own. What I will say is, out of the 3 bottom dwellers of the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, and the Giants, this is the best rotation of the 3. In a word, their batting is just plain average. 4.48 runs per game last year was 18th in the league. They were 29th in the league with a 0.97 home run per 9. No pop at all here, guys. They were 19th in steals. They were 14th in men left on base. They were 20th in OPS. Bang average. David Peralta and Ketel Marte are the only guys that scrape above that average mark, but that's not enough to compete. So all in all, they're an average team, and they'll be happy to make it to 500. I'll lean under because I think they have a chance to really underperform here. Their bats just are not strong enough. And while their pitchers can go out there and can have good games, they could also equally get blown up. The San Francisco Giants over-under is 75.5. They were on track to win 78 games last year. We've already determined that the Rockies have the best batting lineup out of these 3 teams. We've already determined that the Arizona Diamondbacks have the best rotation out of these 3 teams. But I'll put the Giants at number 2 in both spots. In terms of transactions, they brought in Tommy La Stella, and he'll lead off. He led the league last season with a mere 5.3% strikeout rate. That's the lowest season-ending strikeout total that I could find. I know it was an abbreviated season. I'm sure that number would have climbed. But even so, after 60 games to only be striking out 5.3% of the times is mind-blowing. It's usually the person who leads the league in the lowest strikeout rate. That strikeout rate's usually around 10%. So Tommy La Stella was half of that. I mean, he doesn't steal at all. It would be so much better if from the leadoff spot, a guy that gets on base like that could also steal. He's not going to bring that to the table, though. And then the rest of the transactions come in the arms. They lost Drew Smiley. They replaced him with DeSclafani, with Alex Wood, and with Aaron Sanchez. They also added some bodies for the bullpen there, like Jake McGee, Matt Whistler, Aldo Alvarez, and Nick Tropiano. Now, DeSclafani and Sanchez were once both young arms with bright futures. Both had career seasons in 2016, but both have also significantly fallen off since then, mostly due to injury. Speaking of injuries, Alex Woods only pitched in 48 innings over the last 2 seasons, but he was quite good before then. So basically, the Giants are rolling the dice on these guys that have kind of fallen off, and they're hoping they can have reclamation projects over in the Bay. Manning the 1-2 spots in the rotation as of now is Kevin Gausman and Johnny Cueto. The former 4th overall pick, Gausman, had a career year last year. His FIP and xFIP was just a slight tick over 3, and he had a career low 3.62 ERA. In his first 7 seasons, he only had 1 season with a whip under 1.3, but last season that was 1.11. He's really honed his stuff. His split finger changeup has always been an asset, but last year he took it to another level. He had a really impressive 11.92 K per 9. The most impressive and most important thing to me is that he only gave up 12 hits and 6 runs in 3 starts against the Dodgers. And that's going to be a big thing for all these guys in this division. It's just how much the Dodgers and the Padres knock them around. He pitches in a pitcher-friendly ballpark, but he was actually better on the road last year. He's an asset and a talent, there's no doubt about it. He's a weaker SB1, but he's a guy you want to have in your rotation, and he's finally figured it out. Johnny Cueto, on the other hand, not a good number 2. He's 35 now. He only went into the 6th inning 3 of his 12 starts last year. He has not much velocity to speak of. He doesn't have the endurance to go deep anymore either. Last year he had a 1.37 whip. It's not going to get the job done, is it, Johnny? Come on. Ironically, the bullpen I actually really like. I just don't think they're going to have that many leads to protect. Mike Yastrzemski now, 0.968 OPS last year. He was a guy that toiled away in the minors for a long time, and when he finally got his shot, he knocked the door down. And then the rest of the lineup is a bunch of old slow guys. Decent contact, but completely devoid of power. It's going to be hard to manufacture runs for this team. It really is. Brandon Bell, Alex Dickerson, and even Brandon Crawford weirdly had career years last year. It was all at the same time. I think that's more of a fluke than anything. I'm not sure what it was, but I'm not going to bank on that happening again. Essentially, they surprised some teams in the shortened season last year, but I think a bit of that has to do with the fact that they are such a veteran-heavy team. I think in this more normal season, the fairy tale is over, and the Giants will perform like people expected them to perform last year, and I think they have the potential to finish at the bottom of this division. This is not a 500 team for me, so maybe they'll scrape over 75, but I think the under is much, much more likely. And now to the good teams, guys. The Padres plus 195 to win this division. The over-under is 94.5. They were on pace for 100 wins last year, and they got much better in the offseason. No doubt the Mike Clevenger injury stinks, but how does his replacement being Yu Darvish and Blake Snell sound? Also, Joe Musgrove is a decent piece, not to mention adding a couple of former closers to the pen in Keone Kela and Mark Melancon. They did lose some guys, but overall, pitching has improved. You can learn more about Snell, Dinelson Lamet, and Yu Darvish in my NL Cy Young video. Chris Paddock, number 4. He, as predicted, could not improve on his 3.33 ERA from his rookie year. In his sophomore season last year, he finished with a 4.73 ERA. But that was kind of predicted because he had a really low BABIP that rookie year. Regression was bound to come. Moving forward, his ERA will be high 3s, low 4s. He does limit walks, but he gets rocked. He induces very little soft contact. And then Joe Musgrove. There wasn't many positives for the Pittsburgh Pirates last year, but one of them was Joe Musgrove, who was pitching for them at the time. He struck out almost 13 batters per 9 innings, finishing with a 3.19 xFIP. So naturally the Pirates didn't need him anymore. His whip was still pretty high, 1.24, but that was all because of his walk rate going up. Hopefully he can get his control back in line, and typically when pitchers pitch with a lead, they can pound the strike zone more, and their control numbers end up looking better come the end of the year. They've got a strong bullpen. My only concern with the rotation is they don't really have much depth if someone goes down. Scratch that part, because they do have some guys in the minors that I forgot about. In terms of hitting, so many guys are on pace to have absolutely career years. I loved what Trent Grisham did in his rookie year. They talk about the 20-20 club. Well, after 60 games, he was in the 10-10 club last year. So, I mean, projected to be 30-30. And he was one of only 6 players to do that. Maybe you know some of the other guys. Trey Turner, Story, Ramirez, Betts, and his current teammate Fernando Tatis. So how's that for company? Speaking of Tatis, last year he led the league in barrel rate, exit velocity, and hard hit rate. He just smokes that ball. He played in 143 games over 2 seasons. This year, if he stays healthy over 162, he'll put up video game numbers, fittingly. And Manny is back, baby. Manny Machado, that is. He had a career high walk rate, OBP, slugging, and OPS, and a career low strikeout rate. And he has had an illustrious career, which goes to show just how good last year was for him. And also in the comeback trail is Will Myers. Career highs basically across the board, including a .606 slug, which was 8th in the league. Eric Hosmer had a career high with a .517 slugging percentage, a .231 ISO, and a 34.2% fly ball rate, which is great for Hosmer. Grain of salt obviously comes with the fact that it was a shortened season, but it's still incredibly encouraging. Tommy Pham and Jake Cronenworth filled the lineup very nicely as well. There's no pod way they don't go over. And the Dodgers minus 250 to win the division. Highest over-under on the board by quite a long way at 103.5. And that's 8.5 games under the 116 they were on track to win last year. This team is simply the best in baseball, there's no doubt about it. In 2020, the Padres and the Braves were second in run differential with plus 73. The Dodgers were plus 171. Like, the best team in baseball doesn't always win the World Series, but by God were they the best team in baseball last year. Across the 60 games, they averaged a win by 3 runs. So including the losses, pretty much a plus 3 run differential per game. They led the league in runs per game at 5.77, and they led the league in team ERA with 3.10. So objectively, they had the best hitting staff and the best pitching staff in the entire league. Number 1 and number 1 to make a super number 1. Good God, this team's amazing. And what did they go and do? Oh, they added Cy Young winner Trevor Bauer. Of those 17 losses they had, only 5 by 2 runs or more. Super utility man Kiki Hernandez is gone. Setup man Pedro Baez is gone. You can hear in depth about the great pitching in the NL Cy Young video, most of the rotations in there, but Clayton Kershaw's been around forever. He's still one of the best to ever do it. He's still going strong. Trevor Bauer, your 2020 Cy Young winner. He just signed a 3-year, $102 million contract. Shows what the Dodgers think of him, right? Walker Buehler. Expect a high 2s, low 3s ERA this year. He'd be an SP1 on most teams. Julio Urias. Now he has 200 major league innings under his belt. His control is better every year. And then David Price coming back. How about that for a nice little bonus? Sure, he's now 35, but in 2019, the last time he pitched, he had his highest ever K per 9. They also have Tony Gonsolin and Dustin May in the minors just to start games for fun whenever the Dodgers want to magically invent an injury for one of their starters. All these guys will dominate. All these guys will pitch with the lead. They're going to probably lead the lead in team ERA again. Probably lead the league in in-team runs scored again. Bess and Bellinger, the two of the top 10 bats in the league. Corey Seager will look to build in his career year, and they'll find a way to incorporate rookie Gavin Lux too, I'm sure. Anyone at all taking the under here? What number would we have to say the over-under is for you to take the under? 120? 100 wins for me is just guaranteed. Just lock in 100. So you only need to get 3.5 more wins to hit the over here. And what I really love that people might not be talking about is because the Padres are so much better this year, the Dodgers are going to be incentivized to win games like long into the season. If the Padres weren't competitive, the Dodgers would have this division wrapped up in no time. I'm sure the Dodgers will hit the over. Confidometer time. Highest over-under in the league is going over. Give me the Dodgers at over 103.5. California dreaming, baby. Give me the Padres over 94.5. The over train keeps on rolling through the Rockies. Give me the Colorado Rockies over 63.5. The D-backs, I'm going to D-back them to go under 74.5. And the Giants, I'm going to go under 75.5. And as I say this out loud, I think they probably should be higher on the Confidometer. I don't think they're going to hit 75.5. And that's it, guys. We've made it all across this great continent of ours, looking and previewing at all 30 teams. What a ride it's been. Thanks for joining me. Plenty of more great content coming down the line. More baseball advice and more betting advice coming at you on the Casual Fan Podcast. Like, subscribe. Peace.